Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. There was not a program across the country that did better work over the last couple of months in the transfer portal than Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers. And I've been very vocal going into 2025. The roster that we see on paper for LSU, they have the opportunity to compete at the highest level of the sport in the 2025 year. There is not a lot of teams across the country where you look at the roster and say, yeah, that's a national championship caliber roster if it all comes together. I look at LSU, those are the words that I'm saying. Now, for LSU to go out and contend for a national championship, you need a lot of new faces to come into this LSU program and be difference makers. Who are the most important new faces coming into this program as the dust has settled? That's the conversation I want to get into. I got some hot takes, and I'll say this, and this is probably how we'll start off. To the LSU fans, y'all let it fly in the comment section. An impossible list to put together because there are so many potential names that are going to be important for LSU. Let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. It's been a freaking blast talking this program during the last couple of months. A ton of LSU fans showing support to the fellas. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it, and let's get into probably the hottest take I have, and that is Barian Brown, the most important new face coming into this program. There are probably a lot of LSU fans looking at me and saying, well, I feel like some of the additions on the defensive side of football are pretty damn important too. Would agree. And we're going to get to a lot of defenders that I think are important. The reason I'm going with Barian Brown is I think this kid, if we're talking about Barian Brown being one of the best wide receivers in the country in late October, would not be surprised in the slightest. Number one, criminally underrated football player coming over from Kentucky. Number two, perfect fit in this LSU offense. Like, what's the name of the game for LSU on the offensive side of the football? That is speed and space. There ain't many better offensive coordinators in the country that create more space for their pass catchers than Joe Sloan. All right, who is one of the most dangerous players with the football in their hands in the country? I would argue it's Barian Brown. There are so many different ways Barian Brown can be a problem for an opposing defense. He can win vertically down the field because he's one of the fastest players in the sport. He's also extremely dynamic with the football in his hands. He's a multi-dimensional wide receiver that I think fits like a glove for what this LSU offense wants to do. Now, I think there might be some LSU fans or maybe just some college football fans across the country and say, well, he wasn't like super productive at Kentucky. This seems like a pretty damn big projection coming out of it. And look, maybe it is a little bit of a projection. He was dealing with some really poor quarterback play in Lexington, Kentucky. I mean, he worked with Brock Vandergriff in 2024. That didn't go well. Devin Leary in 2023 was a disaster for Kentucky. Then in 2022, as a true freshman, he worked with Will Levis, was one of the best freshmen in the country. But even Will Levis was not exactly a consistent quarterback when he was playing his college football at Kentucky. Garrett Nussmeier is by far the best quarterback that Barian Brown has been able to work with. It is a perfect offense for the skill set of Barian Brown. I think he's the wide receiver one of this football team. I think he's the difference maker that you could argue maybe LSU didn't have enough of in the 2024 year. Give me Barian Brown, the most impactful new face coming into LSU. Number two, AJ Halsey. Now, there's a ton of different ways you could go with, all right, who's the most impactful secondary member for LSU? You could go to Marcus Cooley from NC State. You could go DJ Pickett as a true freshman. You could go Mansour Lane from Virginia Tech. You could go Jakeem Jackson from Florida, a guy that had a very good spring practice for LSU. Why am I going with AJ Halsey? Maybe a little bit of recency bias since we've been talking a lot of AJ Halsey over the last couple of weeks. More importantly, this is the exact safety that Coach Baker needs for LSU in the 2025 year. You didn't have enough of multidimensional safety play in the 2024 year. I would argue is the worst position on this LSU football team last year. You had guys that couldn't hold up in man coverage, couldn't tackle in space when they needed to, couldn't come up and support the run, couldn't play the deeper third. AJ Halsey can do it all. I mean, one, he's a ball hawking safety that I am pretty damn confident is going to come up with some difference making turnovers for LSU in the 2025 year, something LSU did not have in 2025 outside of the top 100 in turnovers forced last year. He's a guy that can come up into the box and support the run. He's 6', 215, like just as big as some of these linebackers. And he's a guy that also can hold up in man coverage. He's that utility safety that LSU didn't have last year. That's really important to the Coach Baker defense. Again, LSU didn't make a ton of spring portal additions. They made two, but those two additions were massive because the number 3 player on this list is going to be Bernard Guten from USF. I talked about Barry and Brown, I think criminally underrated. Bernard Guten as well. Now, 24/7 Sports, I think, has the correct evaluation of this kid. I think some LSU fans are way too low on Bernard Guten. I think there's a lot of LSU fans that look at 6'1", 280 and say, that ain't going to hold up in the SEC. And again, I would encourage LSU fans to go back and watch Bernard Guten against Alabama, or go watch Bernard Guten against the Miami Hurricanes last year, who had one of the best offensive lines in the country. This kid is super disruptive in the middle of the defensive line. We know we have edge rushers that can absolutely rip. We weren't necessarily sure the pass rush production we were going to get from the inside of this defensive line. Bernard Guten's one of the best in the country in terms of a pure pass rusher in the middle of that defensive line. But what I also think is I think he's pretty dang good against the run. Now, I wouldn't say he's elite against the run, but I think he's more than serviceable. He's a guy that's not necessarily the build of a Sadir Mitchell, but a guy that's really, really active, knows how to get off blocks, plays with good leverage. I mean, you go turn on the film from him playing guys like Tyler Booker or Jaden Roberts against Alabama in 2024. It's not like Bernard Guten was losing that battle. In fact, there was a lot of reps on that film that Bernard Guten was taking it to some of the better interior offensive linemen that we saw in this conference last year. It was probably the biggest position of concern for LSU going into 2025. And they got one of the best players at that position in the spring transfer portal window. This kid is going to play a role in terms of if LSU goes out and wins the SEC or goes out and wins the national championship, Bernard Guten is going to be an all SEC caliber guy. And I think he's very capable of doing so in the 2025 year. Number 4, let's go Jack Pyurn here. And what I love about Jack Pyurn is I don't think we appreciate how good this kid maybe can be. We know we're getting a solid football player coming from Florida. Like, you go just take a look at the 2024 year. That's a player we trust playing in the SEC. There's a little bit more upside that I'm not necessarily sure if we knew was there when he committed to LSU in the winter. Because you talk about spring practice standouts, I don't know if there's a better player on defense than Jack Pyurn in the spring. We know he's good against the run. There ain't no question about that. Just go look at what he did at Florida. Really heavy hands, knows how to win at the point of attack, can set the edge, can get off blocks. Absolute difference maker against the run, and that's probably where it starts. You look at LSU and say, I think the pass rush is going to be pretty good. I think the bigger question is, can we be good enough against the run to set up those third and long situations where we can let it rip in terms of our pass rushers? And Jack Pyurn is going to play a massive role in LSU being good against the run. But here's the thing is, like, his upside as a pass rusher, I think it's there. Now, he didn't get a ton of opportunity. That's kind of why he left Florida. He felt like he wasn't getting enough opportunity to get after the passer on third downs. From what you heard coming out of spring, he's more than just a run-stopping edge defender. Like, he can get after and let it rip off the edge. That's what excites me the most. If we get the Jack Pyurn that we're hearing about during spring practice, that fires me up in terms of what this kid can be. Number 5, another hot take here. I'm going to go Carius Curran. I think this kid's going to play for LSU. Now, is he going to be one of the 5 starting offensive linemen week 1 on the road against Clemson? Probably not, but maybe. This kid was one of my favorite kids in the 2025 cycle, and I think eventually will be playing a lot of football for LSU down the road. Can play guard, can play tackle, maybe is just a utility guy on the offensive line as a true freshman. Guess what? That's important. Like, when you talk about LSU and winning SEC championships and winning national championships, you better be deep on that offensive line. That kills a lot of teams in the month of November when they have to start accessing their depth. Carius Curran's that guy. He can play guard, can play tackle, can do whatever you want on the offensive side of the football and going to be pretty damn good at it. Not many better athletes with that kind of body. And he's done a really good job in the weight room, up to 340 pounds. He came in maybe 305 tops. Did a really good job in the winter in the weight room for LSU. A guy that I think is going to play. Now, we left off a lot of really important names. Like you could say Nick Anderson, like the upside that Nick Anderson has, especially stretching the field, could be very big for LSU. Patrick Payton, if you told me Patrick Payton was one of the best pass rushers in the country in 2025, I wouldn't be all that surprised. Talk about DJ Pickett on the boundary or Mansour Lane. There's a lot of guys that are going to impact this football team immediately. These are the five that really intrigue me. And you talk about if LSU goes out and wins an SEC championship, contends for a national championship, I think the names that we just talked about for the last 11 minutes, I think are going to be some of the better football players on this team. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.